Okay, if you'll take your seats, we're going to get started here. We're so happy to have Jerry Fogg back again with all of his beautiful artwork. Last week he told about everything on that side of the room, so we've changed the chairs around so this week he can tell about this side of the room. And Judy Little is going to take money if you want to buy any of the greeting cards, and so she's right over there if you want to buy any of his beautiful cards. Thank you, Jerry.
That's a Dean Martin move. Take a drink before you get started there. Okay, my name's Jerry Fogg, of course. I didn't tell you my Native American name. I was named Wanahi Tatonka by the elders, which is bull ghost. And I don't know if they were talking about my talking or anything, but it's just, that was long ago. One thing I wanted to mention about the pieces too and everything else is that I pride myself in them being one of a kind. Other than portraits that I've reproduced, or cards that I put the art on, I'll never make another one like this. You know, they're one of a kind, and that's, you know, final on that. We didn't go through the ceremonies last week because I thought there'd be a lot more people here this week. But it's understandable when you got the Super Bowl going on. How can I challenge that? But anyway, we're all friends here. Hello. In our culture, we always greet people by welcoming them to the destination they have gone to or they come to be where they're at. And they use tobacco when they do this. So tobacco was a very important thing among our people. But if you look around the world, it's kind of crazy how, you know, tobacco was everywhere. So probably it was meant to be. But we have our ways of even doing such things as procedures when we offer tobacco. We always have our teepee or our wigwam or whatever you want to call it, doorway facing east. So you wake up with the morning sun. But when we welcome people, we start from the west. Because the west is, we welcome people from the west who come here. West is the color black. We have all these insignificant things about our directions even. Black is the word Sapa, which means where the storms come from. If you see a lot of storms, the majority of them come from the west. So then we turn and we welcome people from the north. North is the color red, Luta. And it has so much meaning among all the other directions because it represents the red stone of the blood that we shared upon Mother Earth as we tried to survive through the years and far beyond into our ancient times. And that's why you see our pipes. They're made out of catlinite pipestone, which is soft to work and carve and such. And we hold that dearest from a white buffalo calf woman who brought it to us and told us that this will save your nation. And to this day, it is something that we don't toy with. We have an elder who takes care of it, the bundle, the white buffalo calf pipe bag bundle that is very sacred. You know, like any other scriptures are sacred to them and on and on and on. Well, this is sacred to us. Then we welcome people from the east, which is the color yellow, which is the word pe. And yellow, of course, you figured out it's the rising sun. It comes up in the east, and it gives everything life. Without the sun, we wouldn't last very long at all. Even artificial light anymore wouldn't carry us through. Well, we try, but it is there. Yellow is the east. And last but not least, we look to the south. We look to the south, which is one of our more meaningful directions. It is white, ska. And it is the color that where our ancestors go when they make their journey. They go to the south. We all will do that too. It doesn't really matter how you go that road, but you are going that road. You won't live forever. But to a lot of people, you can choose your own. But as a people of the Dakota, Nakota, and Lakota nations, we choose south to go. Probably because it's warmer. When I was young, I danced Indian, I sang Indian, and in doing so, I was with elders because they were the ones who knew what to do. And I was one of the generations, I wasn't the only one, of course, but I was one of the generations that was growing up trying to hold on to that. Hold on to the song, hold on to the traditions, hold on to whatnot, stories and legends. But as I talked to one of the elders, I asked him one time, I said, Tokashila, which is grandfather. I said, Tokashila, I said, I have heard many stories about this one thing. I have heard many stories about this one thing. Which one is true? Is somebody BSing, or tell me, which one is true? And I thought he was going to say, okay, where do you want to start? And he said, no, Takashila. He said, they're all true because they're being told. They're being still emphasized as a story, as a tale, as an event, as a happening, or something that went on among our people. It's just like, don't forget about this. You got to carry it on. We don't forget about the Twin Towers because it's always there. The story is always there. It's always being told somewhere. And many other things, it's not all tragedies because there's good stories just as much as there is any other kind of story. But he told me and surprised me. He really surprised me. He said they're all true. Just go on telling them. Tell them the way you wish. But just make them so that people understand what you're talking about. So I did that. So then that's where I go on and I talk about what I figure I know, the best I know. I put it in artwork. I try to emphasize it in presentations and whatnot. But I've been pretty successful with it. Last but not least, I got permission Sage to us is pretty much almost a mandatory thing to those who really try to live by their tribal customs and traditions. And I won't go up to anybody with this, so just right around here. Usually when we're in a ceremony act, each person, washes themselves, cleanses themselves. And we use the sage to cleanse. And what we mean by cleansing, it's kind of a mythical thing. It cleans the air. It cleans the air of people that are negative. And we use sage in many forms and many actions. We use it at weddings, childbirth, and all kinds of things. We use it in health-wise and trying to be safe. And I know people that get up in the morning and the first thing they do is they open up their curtains to the east, they put their hands in the air and say, "I thank you, I am here." And then they light up their sage. Every day. Yeah. But that is the ceremony, that little bit of ceremony that I do. And these are just kind of edited down because, in the true way of nature of things, we would be here all day doing such actions. But last week, I left off over in this corner over here, and I wanted to continue on, but I'm going to leave Hiawatha out for right now. I'll get back to that because that's such a long, not a long story, but a more important one. But anyway, here I got a picture. It's a framed copy. And the reason why I bring this with me and the other two is because they have a story, or they have a procedure that I do. And one of the procedures I do in my art is called pointillism. Some art teachers call it Dadaism. And it's when you look at that picture and there's not one line in it. It's all dots. I just take a light line and go across where the eyes are, and I divide my paper coming down, and you just start dotting. And you just, it's easy to make a mistake, but what you can do is just dot some more around it and keep going. But yeah, that's one of the procedures I use. And then in some pictures, when I'm through dotting it with pencil or whatever, I take my hand and I smudge the whole picture, which leaves kind of a charcoal or kind of just excess ink or whatever to it. And then I take my eraser and I erase away the lead spread from my hand to bring out the highlights in the picture. This next picture here is a story about the IIM account, which turned out a woman went into a law case against the United States government for when they built all the dams in North Dakota and South Dakota. And they flooded out a big portion of what was ours. The trees, the mineral rights, the fishing rights, it was just notorious how they did that without even asking or anything else. But this was long ago before she put in the lawsuit. But she fought that lawsuit for 16 years, and she finally passed on. It was known as the Cobell lawsuit. And 2 years after she passed on, other people picked up the fight. And the judge just finally got tired of it, and he said, just pay the Native American. You did what you did, and you never asked, so just pay the Native American. Well, of course, some of us know the government working. All this money went to education, all this money went that way, all this money went that way. And finally, and it only came to a certain age who was going to get money for that, which it stopped at my mother's. So it wasn't that much that each individual Native American got. And the name of it was the IIM account, Individual Indian Monies, which was paid out. So when I made this picture, I took the name of that lawsuit and I called it I Am Waiting. So there's a story on that one. This one down here, it kind of pertains to the Hiawatha one, but the reason I did this piece here was I found out that the Native Americans were shipped by railroad a lot to Canton. They were taken there by railroad. And I dug it a little bit further and deeper, and I found out that when they were taken by railroad there, they were not allowed to be in the cabin. They were handcuffed to the middle part, the railings. And these people were supposed to be insane or medically handicapped or what, and they're sitting out there in a speeding train handcuffed to to the center part. So I call that first to arrive. This little piece back here is another drawing of framed copy that I did. His name is Yellow Hair. And of course, the reason why I did him, there was another story. In 1868, when the government did what they called the Great Sioux Nation they gave to us, they took our own land and gave it to us and said, you should be happy. You should thank us. But anyway, he was one of the last ones to sign the treaty. And it was all set up at Fort Laramie. And by so much traffic and everything else, how the dust builds up on the ground and all the grass disappears and everything else. He was in front of the table with all the candidates, sitting there with their tall hats and everything else. When he finally went and put his X on there, he reached down, he picked up a bunch of dirt dust. And he said to those people, he said, once we was a great nation. Once we lived with Mother Earth. We shared what we had. She gave what she could. And we lived peacefully and we lived wonderfully. But now you have come and did what you have done. And we have hardly anything left. Right here is what we got left. And he went and he threw it at him, and of course it dissipated into the air, dusty air. And he says, now you got that too. And he turned and walked away. So that's, one of his reasons why I carry him with me. This one here, unfortunately, we already talked about. So we'll get on the wall. This piece here is just simply called Veterans. I grew up in a time when the veterans from the Korean War were trying to still filter themselves back into public, and Vietnam was coming home. And it just seemed like they never got anything right about it. But I was, living on a reservation, what could I say? I just had my feelings, so I put it in a piece of art. And in this here part, the little tags that go on their chest, these are all Korean. And these are all Vietnam. And then there's shell casings with bone bead. That was our protection, like they got their bulletproof jackets today. The bone bead was our protection from whatnot. And then I offer tobacco ties so I can talk about the deceased. And it's got its government or its military insignias up there. And the beadwork was the Vietnam colors that were made to wampum, as they call it. They used to just carry it with them as security or a feeling of hope and whatnot. This piece here I just specifically call South Dakota. It's got the seal of South Dakota in it, brass seal. And what it's all about is that our young, they all go to school today, whether it's still in a boarding school or whether it's on a public school just off the reservation or whatnot. But the story is that they all take off. They all go out to search out a life. But for some reason, they have a hard time. And in doing so, that's when you see the arrows coming back. But not all of them do, but they come back. And I could never understand that, why they always come back to that reservation. It's kind of like a crutch. You couldn't get me to ever go back to any reservation. A lot of people have a lot of different thoughts about that. They could say, yeah, that's our home. That's my reservation. I am Oglala. I am Hunkpatty. That's fine and dandy. You can have your opinion. But my opinion is why would you go back to a place they stuck you on and told you to stay without giving you any chance of further advancing into society? This one here, I kind of like the story about that. because it's called the Red Road Hoop of Life. Now what it is it's about all of us. In my eyes, anyway, it's about everyone. You start up here with your mother and your father together, giving that seed of life that we are born. And you jump on that hoop and you start going around this way. You're an infant here and you need the guidance and help of elders. And all these here are grandma, grandpa, uncles, aunts, mom, dad. These are those four. Then you get down here and you start being educated and getting your own life started. And right here is the hard part of life. Hard knocks, they call it, of life. Here's all your insurance bills, your mortgage, your food bill, your gas, your car insurance. All these you got to live through. And then you get up over here, and then you become an advisor. People start listening to you. Hopefully that's where I'm at. People start listening to you, and then when you come about the corner, you become an elder. And then people better listen to you. Come around here, and then you come back to the top. And then that's when you've lived your time here. You've put in the best you can while you could. And then it becomes a soul, your soul. It sits in there. And these things here are just what we all have. Our heart, our kidney, our liver, intestine, all that. It sits below that soul that is invisible, that goes away. That goes to Wakantanka. He decides what happens to you. But that's just that. That's just kind of the life we all live. In a certain way it resembles, in some factor. This one here is called Relay Oyatewe. And just about 10 years ago, it started to come back from its traditional long ago procedures. It would be where you would jump on your horse and you'd ride around the corral or the racetrack twice, and then you got to jump off and then jump on another horse and go around twice again. Well, you think, well, that's easy and everything else. But when you get 7 or 8 guys that are coming in at the same time trying to jump off horses and everything else, it's just crazy, and it's funny and it's laughable that that you're trying to root for somebody, and half the time you can't see them. There's so much smoke or dust from the horses and everything else and then of course the horses are spooked, and I've seen guys chasing their horse down on foot down around the racetrack. And this one here, we always talk about our warriors, how our warriors, they fight bravely. They do the job that they are assigned to do. But they couldn't do it without the horse. The horse was their factor. So I call this one Spirit Horses. And it's dedicated to all those horses that have died in wars and battles, in efforts to survive. I try to give everything credit where credit is due in a lot of different aspects. But I know everybody's kind of waiting for that game, so I'll come back to this one now, finally. The Hiawatha Indian Insane Asylum. When I talk about that, I always tell people, Google it, because you can get more information on that than I know, because I didn't strategically study it. What I did is I did art for it. And if I could please have my friend talk to you for a little bit, bear with him. He knows not what he says. Mr. Ross Lothrop, please.
Can you give him the microphone?
I got it for you, Mom.
No,
Yeah.
well, yes, but it won't pick up on the.
For the screaming. Muda Bodatswananda.
Yeah.
I am Potawatomi. I met Jerry as we became involved with the Canton Asylum. The piece of art that Jerry has here tells the story in so many ways. We can thank Senator Pettigrew for the Canton Asylum for Indians. What was in, anybody play golf? Ever played the golf course? Out between the 4th and 5th fairway at the Hiawatha Golf Course is a cemetery that has the souls of 53 different tribal nations there. It opened in 1902 with the first patient arriving, and it closed officially in February of 1934 after 27 investigations into the treatment and the behaviors and the things that went on or should have gone on there. 121 souls are buried in that cemetery. There were approximately 400 individuals that went through the cemetery. If anybody goes to Newton Hills, about 7 years ago, they added a lodge out just past the main entrance. That lodge was the former asylum superintendent's home that sat on the property. It's a sad story. Jerry mentioned in one of his pieces of work about people going to boarding school. Some of those young people that were in the boarding school were also told, behave or you'll go to the asylum. Many of the individuals that went through those doors were not insane. They had issues, yes. But one of the major issues that was there was the Indian agent. There were elders, there were medicine men, there were military veterans from World War I out there. There was a young lady who they thought was too promiscuous because she had a lot of children. So basically, as my mother said, who I get my Potawatomi ancestry from, it was a time period when the government was trying to get the Indian out of the Indian. As you all know, when they went to boarding schools, they cut their hair, we couldn't speak our language, we couldn't practice our rituals. And with that, I turn it to Jerry to tell you about the Hiawatha piece.
Thank you, Ross. The piece I put together was when we first got our committee together to try to keep these people remembered, these human beings. We held ceremonies once a year. We held our own personal gatherings. We did our own thought of caring for these people, because these people are not just from the 3-5 state area. These people are from all over America. There's people from New York in there, Native Americans. There's Native Americans from California, Mexico, Canada. They were all brought there. And it was just kind of like, it got to a point to where people were saying, well, you're going to Canton, you got a death sentence. You ain't returning. And hardly anybody did return unless they ran away and they couldn't find them. They said, well, we were going to send them home anyway, just to make their records right. But it is a sad, sad state of affairs, and it is a long story. That many years, and all it's got to give is 121 deceased. Well, I doubt there's a lot more to it than that. The way they were treated in there, the way the women were handled. There was children born in there over the years. And there was no medical services. I really don't know the logistics right to the point, but they make an asylum and they don't even have a doctor. No surgeon, no physician, no psychologist. And then their staff was very small, because some of them just couldn't understand, what are you putting these people through? What are you doing to them? But anyway, that's as far as my presentation goes today. If you have any questions, I'm more happy to answer or give you some kind of story.
Can you describe the actual artwork?
The Hiawatha piece?
Yes.
Sure. When I made this, I knew I had to have certain things in it to make it what it was. Of course, the first thing I thought of was the breastplate, because this is what protects our people. This is everything, that we knew as a people that would protect us. And one thing I'd like you to see is that how far apart these are. In the actual assemblage, they would be tightly together. Well, not tightly, but touching together. I represented that by putting them apart by nobody protected us. Even our beliefs couldn't protect us. And of course, there's the 121 names on there. But as far as we're concerned and our thoughts, there is more out there than that buried. Here and there and here. And I'm always saying it's ugly thought, but there was a river out back even that heaven knows what happened there. And I found these straps, and I couldn't find anything that showed old bondage that they were practically always in. There's stories that came out of there by the orderlies that worked there, the nurses that worked there. The stories were told and handed down by mouth and by paper, by letter, by note, actually saying that there was Native Americans chained to water heaters. It's a wonder they weren't burnt badly and just left there. Got to go to the bathroom? Hey, it's your problem. And then I put all these tobacco ties in here. You see going up and down here. I put that in there, of course, just like the veteran one. That allows me to talk about these. I have to offer tobacco to them also, to mention them. Then there has to be the insignias of the military. And these here are medicine wheels. Our grandmothers and mothers made those medicine wheels and gave them to their young, their offspring, as a medicine, to hold a spiritual medicine. Not 2 Tylenols and call me in the morning. It was a spiritual medicine. And I went and I found a document here and just cut it out and everything else and made my own printing, which was kind of cheating, but hey, it recognizes the picture. You can see what it says and everything else. And then if you can see through the bone and everything else, you can see that there's a flag back in there, and it's upside down. And I'm sure you know what that means. So, it's an interesting piece, and it's a one that I care for and put a lot of thought into, especially. Any other questions?
You're going to tell us about your moccasins. So is the name of that piece Hiawatha?
Hiawatha Indian Insane Asylum.
So, for instance, in Canton, where they have the Hiawatha Golf Course, and I'm thinking about this afternoon where there's the Kansas City Chiefs, that certainly doesn't honor Native Americans. Or does, how do you feel about
Well,
that?
see, there's a lot of, this country, this world, and everything has, I don't want to get tangent off or anything else, but it has a lot of people. And a lot of people have a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts, a lot of opinions. But, for instance, Kansas City, there's 2 different things I look at there. When the crowd is up there going like this in the crowd, no. That's not good. But if you want to name a team because you're damn good and you are good, and you are chiefs and you are braves, and you're going to go out and fight like warriors, well, see, that's another option of an ideal, of an opinion. But, I leave the money alone where it's at. And those are professionals. They got the big bucks. I was requested to talk about my moccasins. I made these a long time ago, and they've been with me, I can't really even say how long. But to make a pair, it seems special to me, because these, I'm talking maybe these have been over with me for 30 some years. And there's a lot of other people that have moccasins and they're all falling apart. And, it isn't that I'm really good at making moccasins, it's just that pretty much taken care of them. And they do go all the way up and all the way around. But moccasins are, one thing I can say is that our people, they were all at heart, deep in their soul, artists. They looked to the good side of things, of life and its ways. When a woman would make her man a shirt, she would put beadwork or quill work down the arms or around the front or back, and their coats, their any kind of regalia. If you've been to a powwow, you've seen those dancers with so much. Is there a person in there? there's so much. But yeah, it's even long time ago when we hardly had anything to put together, the women always adorned whatever they made for their family, their little ones, their children, their parents, their loved one. They always adorned it. They felt like that had to be on there. And it wasn't an insignia to say who you were. It was just something that was a part of them being on a part that is going to be a part of someone else. Did you understand that? I didn't get that.
Am I on? Oh, yeah. Did you read the book, The Girl Who Sang with the Buffalo?
Not, I got to be honest, not really. I got all those books. I got all 5 of them.
It really
Yeah.
told a really good picture of what it was like down in that asylum.
I touched on them here and there, but I just, I can't sit down and read a picture. I'm asleep after 2 pages. It don't matter what kind of book it is.
The Hiawatha piece, how long did it take you to put that together?
That one I remember distinctly. It just took me about 4 days. Because I already had it, I had the frame and everything already. And when I stood back and looked at the frame and everything else, I visioned what would be in it. So all I had to do was just assemblage. Just go and make a breastplate, which I can do in a day, and adorn it with all the additives I have and I want into it. I do that with a lot of pictures, and it's kind of a funny thing that I've done pictures where I see what I want, so I put it all in there and I hang it and I stand back, half of that's got to come out of there. Way too much in there. And I almost felt like I did that with that. But every time I felt like trying to take something out of there, it had to be in there to tell the story of what the picture's telling.
Question about names, and I think we finally got a better name for the tallest mountain between the Rockies and the Alps in Europe with Black Elk Peak, but I'm not comfortable with the name of our river and our city, Sioux Falls and the Big Sioux River, and I just, it's a derogatory term as I understand it, and so I'm curious what the native name was for the river, and kind of your thoughts on the name, or maybe if you have any stories about the river or the falls.
Well, in my opinion and everything else, naming things wasn't our big concern. But in what they named it, kind of fits the record, but just as a different element. Because Sioux, in real life, actually means snake in the grass. So, all right, let's go to snake in the grass. Yeah. So it doesn't matter to that part. It isn't like it's... I remember a while back, or maybe you guys remember too, a while back they had that Squaw Creek. Yeah. Did they change the name of that?
There was a movement to do it.
Yeah, I believe they did, and I agree with that. That something like that is, and then you got to almost be careful about what you think you name could be true. Like Bad Boy River, Well, there's probably is a bad boy somewhere, that's got to be true. But all in all, it's just that naming something doesn't really concern the native, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't concern me or a lot of people I know. It's just a way of saying a location to go to. Let's go to the Big Sioux, let's go to, Sioux Falls. Let's go to Sioux City, see a bunch of snakes in the grass. But that's about as far as I can say on that. Just, like I said, there can be names though that should not be.
Is there a native name for the river? Do you know what it was called?
Manituka. Manituka is moving water, See, or Inaji, Mani Inaji. There you go. Mani Inaji is a creek or a object of water moving. And that's what we call that.
Any other questions? Betty?
Have you ever been to the Pipestone National Monument at Pipestone, Minnesota?
When I graduated from Flanger Indian School, geez, I don't want to name the year. Back in the 70s, Pipestone National Monument had a program where they had built 9 houses up on the hill above the falls. Brand new houses, never been lived in. And I was luckily picked as one of the artists to occupy one of them houses and work at the monument as far as doing artwork. Artist in residence is what they call us. And yes, so yeah, I've been up to Pipestone, worked it there.
Yeah, they made the Pipestone Peace Fight there out of the Pipestone Rock.
Like I mentioned last time, I tried many different medias of art, like oil. I had a hell of a time scrubbing that off stuff. It sticks like heck. And then charcoal, be black dust everywhere. And sculpturing is that, in the same way with Pipestone. I tried working at Pipestone and my hands were permanently red. I had it up my in my hair, all over the place. I mean, it's a dusty job, and it just wasn't up my category. I just moved on to what I was doing.
Anyone else?
So with all your experience, and you have really awesome artwork.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. What do you feel about, so in the media now, they're talking about using AI to make art. I wanted to ask you this last week, but I was like, I'll wait till the end. So what do you feel about that? Like people using AI to make artwork when you have all your emotion and all your feeling into this artwork, and it feels to me that it would be different, but I would like to get your opinion on it too.
My opinion, I've always told myself when I first started and got going and even started making a little bit of a name for myself, I wanted to be humble about it. So I said the best way I could be humble is if I like it or not, it is art, because it's somebody doing something to create something in that aspect. Even if I didn't sell a $40 piece, but here Pete won a piece of 3 blocks, all different colors, went for 2.5 mil. It's just, but it's just about the humbleness of the artist. I don't really call it the kind of art that I do, which is Fogma. I don't call it anywhere near the kind of art I do, but I do call it art. They give me a computer and tell me to do it, and no way.
Thank you. Anyone else? Susanna?
This goes back to Hiawatha. What is going to go, is there a plan to have a memorial? I know they've done some things there, but what's in the works for bringing the community and the world to know what happened there and learn from it
We have,
and honor them?
We have had an honoring every year. Well, maybe we don't advertise it enough, but we're looking for people to want to be a part of what happens at the honorings. But it's really hard to, we get 9 people there that are willing to be part of it, but during the year when we're trying to plan it, you don't get nobody. Did you want to say something, Ross? Ross is the main guy on that.
The facilitator of the Keepers of the Canton Native Asylum story. It is natives and non-natives that Jerry's talking about doing the annual honorings.
Annual honor.
We have some goals and some visions. We've accomplished some of them already. We officially became a part of the process and organization in 2014 when our group was recognized by the city of Canton with a proclamation. We were kind of the intermediary between what was a federal institution to the city of Canton, a black mark in the history of South Dakota. Our goals, and some have been met. One of them is Jerry's artwork piece, and he doesn't advertise this very well. That piece traveled with the governor's art show across South Dakota for 18 months. And we have one piece, there's a card back there, it's called Forsaken, that I own, and we're in the process of donating that to the National Museum, Indian Museum in D.C. But other things that we're trying to accomplish, Jerry and Ann Dillenschneider, primarily, and myself, they have gone out and done presentations of at least 4 to 5 dozen across the state. From Jerry and I did one to a group of 10 people. We've got one coming up in March to a women's society here in town. But they're able to go anywhere and everywhere. Jerry's artwork has been on display at the South Dakota Art Museum in Brookings, where he was able to tell the story along with his other pieces. Our goal right now is we're trying to find a donor to put up a new fence around the cemetery. Probably our first big mission that we did to get people to recognize what was going on was those 53 tribes. There are people that don't even know they have ancestors there. After we were recognized in 14, we sent a message out to a letter with a burial plot map, which is not accurate, to the 53 tribes. And ever since then, we have had a tribal group out of Arizona that has sent a delegation up every year to our honoring. And this past honoring, this fall, we had another group from Arizona come up. But it's getting the word out and making a connection through presentations, we've done, if anybody's heard of Kent Nurburn, he's an author out of Minnesota. He has a trilogy that addresses the native culture. And Neither Wolf Nor Dog, it talks about, I believe, in that one. Or The Girl Who Talked to the Buffalo, talks a little bit about the asylum in there. We did a presentation at Washington Pavilion quite a number of years ago that we had the author there of Vanished in Hiawatha. So things like that we're doing, sending the word out. Jerry and I are now working on a process of getting into the school systems, working with the Indian education coordinators in the 4 public schools, high schools here in Sioux Falls. So little bit by little bit, our group, as he said, is small. We're all volunteers. The honoring that we put on, that we have taken over, LaVonna Judah, who is Yankton Sioux, she restarted that program in 2011. It was started by Harold Ironshield. He passed away, and Harold started in 87 or 88. So there was a down period. We probably don't advertise as much as we should as far as the honoring, because in all honesty, we do, as is true in Native culture, we have a big feast after that honoring. And there's primarily a very small number of people, about 3, that fund that whole process in addition to what is brought in from the potluck. But we bring in drum groups. We are working with Marty Indian School. They brought students up last year, 2 years ago. They brought a busload of kids up. They plan on bringing more. Of course, the weather didn't help this year. Lower Brule has become very involved. Their Lakota teacher has come up to it as a family. So it's things like that we're doing bit by bit, piece by piece, slowly dreaming a small group, then making a connection about we can't forget the past. We don't want to repeat the past. So that's a little bit about what's going on. And Vanished in Hiawatha book, another quick read on the asylum, of course you can Google it all, is They Call It Madness by Todd Leahy, which is a really quick read. It gives you a real good perspective. It's been quiet because the records on the asylum were sealed for 70 years. So it wasn't until 2004 that things started coming out, and we're learning more and more and more.
Okay, well, thanks so much to both of you gentlemen for coming today. This has really been good. And I want to remind everybody that everything in the room is for sale. So, you know,
Cheap.
it's all beautiful. And before you leave, Skip has a little announcement.
Okay, well, two quick announcements, I guess. One is that next week, Mike McCullum will be with us, and we'll do some discussing of the church liturgical calendar. You know, the different colors that show up and what are the different seasons, what do they mean? He'll be covering some of that. And then following that, as we move into Lent, a few years ago, we started doing some Lenten work around a book written by Amy Jill Levine, Entering the Passion of Jesus. And there was a DVD video that goes with it and all sorts of things. We got about 2 or 3 weeks into it, and everything shut down because of COVID. And the Education Committee, when we were looking at doing something for Lent, thought, well, why don't we pull that back out, redo it, and go through the whole thing. So some of you may have the book still. A lot of people bought the book. It was a whole church-wide thing, Sunday morning, adult ed, the Sunday sermons, whole lot of things were being planned. Wednesday, we had Wednesday night classes yet then. Around that, well, we won't be doing all of that this time. We'll just be doing Sunday morning. If you do want to read the book, which will help with the discussions, we have some in the office, or used books for $5. Okay, and you can pick them up and start reading them. They will help with the discussion. I'm going to put things together so if you haven't read the book, you'll still be able to attend and enjoy the class. But it would, always better to have a little bit extra information and background as we go into it. So that'll be starting the first Sunday of Lent.
Okay, thanks again. Let's give a hand to Jerry. I just want to remind everybody, if you want to buy some of the cards, Judy's taking the money over there.